Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark. Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Myself. All right, now, hey, thanks for tuning in. I'm glad that you're stopping by my show here on Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. I'm doing something I haven't done before. I'm streaming both to Facebook and to YouTube. So I really like it when you guys watch on YouTube. So if you follow me on YouTube, head over there and watch live on YouTube. And if you don't follow me on YouTube, you should. You like, comment, subscribe, and share from down below. This is going to be a great conversation tonight. I've got Eric on. He's running for the city council of Jacksonville, Florida. And you're like, okay, what's this got to do with us? Well, I'm going to tell you, that's where change happens. All of my conservative, rocks and cows friends, constitutionally minded people, you make a difference at city council, county commission, and school board. You know, it's where you cut your teeth, really. And that's where the power should be, is local. And we're going to have that conversation tonight. When I bring Eric in, we're going to be focusing on what his socio-cultural views are, political views are, and we are going to also focus on what kind of impact a good, solid candidate for office can have at the local level, and why that matters. So don't tune out just because I'm talking to somebody from Florida. In fact, more than anything, tune in, listen to what he has to say. As always, make sure you are checking out the coffee. You know, best coffee you will ever have. I'm not even kidding, and not just because I'm selling it, and it's got my label on it, but it is phenomenal. I've got people that have canceled their subscriptions to a particular coffee company that went woke on us. But we'll just, they went semi-woke. But anyway, and I got merchandise. And if you haven't checked it out yet, head over to my Subscribe Star and join up there. Talking about coffee, $3 a month. That's one cup of coffee at the local. And that's cheap coffee, by the way. That's one cheap cup of coffee a month. You can support the Patriot movement. I got somebody commenting already. But anyway, I'm going to bring Eric in, and we are going to have a conversation. He's going to, and he's going to do most of the talking this time. I swear he's going to do most of the talking. Well, Eric, thanks for doing this.
No problem. Thank you for the opportunity to come on your podcast.
So this is episode 4 of Libertarian Lowdown, and you were one of the people that Mr. Welty, to everyone else, Anthony connected us. He said, "Oh no, I got some people you should talk to," and he was one of the first people he suggested. So, first of all, tell the audience a little bit about who you are, where you live, and a little bit about your area.
Oh, yeah. So I'm Eric Parker, running for Jacksonville City Council in District 2 of Jacksonville. I am a born and raised Floridian, was born in Jacksonville, raised in Yulee, Florida, which is used to be small town just north of Jacksonville. Graduated from Fernandina Beach High School, which is in Nassau County, still the county north of Duval County, which is where Jacksonville is at. I joined the Army Reserves out of high school, military police, deployed to Iraq, deployed to Guantanamo Bay. After my deployment to Guantanamo Bay, I think it was 2013, I bought a place here in Jacksonville, and I've been here ever since. So almost 9 years I've been living in the same place in Jacksonville. A little bit about my political background. The first time I ever heard the term laissez-faire economics, or about Austrian economics, or libertarianism was in an economics class in high school. I guess I kind of just planted that seed. I always was paid attention to, supply and demand and that sort of the monetary policy and everything. I was interested in that type of boring stuff. But I've registered as a Republican out of high school. And I was a registered Republican up until 2020. And it was just the out of control spending, both at the federal, state, and local level, that kind of encouraged me to. I always leaned libertarian. I was a Ron Paul supporter 2008, 2012. I was a Rand Paul supporter in 2016. And I hung around, but I wasn't politically involved with the Republican Party. I wasn't going to meetings or any of that. I was just a registered Republican that whenever there was a libertarian leaning candidate, I would, buy their stuff, maybe go wave a sign every now and then, but I wasn't politically involved. So in 2020, I had a part-time job. It was a hobby in the local craft beer scene, turned into multiple part-time jobs in the local craft beer scene. One as a tour guide for a craft beer bus that would go around to different breweries in Jacksonville. Another one was a beer tender, which turned into assistant manager and outside sales. All like side gigs, all just stuff I did because I enjoyed it. Working for a local family-owned craft brewery. And it was in 2020 and the COVID lockdowns. A lot of people outside of Florida, they really like DeSantis. And I would say he's probably top 2 out of the 50 governors in the United States. But he did lock our state down for about 9 weeks in 2020. And that nearly put the family-owned brewery that I was working at out of business. It did put the craft beer bus tour in Jacksonville that I worked at out of business. They never opened up after COVID. But it was about a 9-week lockdown. At nearly that family-owned brewery I worked at was 2 weeks away from closing their doors before they were essentially by the state forced to purchase a food license and get a hot dog roller and become a restaurant because, you can't catch COVID when you're eating a hot dog. So
just for future reference as we go on, we like to refer to that virus as the coof.
The coof?
The coof, yes, because if we call it by its other name, the approved name, the algorithm picks up on it and they cancel me. So we're going to call it the coof and the jab.
I'll call it the coof. I do my best not to say it. And once I get out, like after this little bit, I'll probably quit talking about COVID or coof. Excuse me, coof. I'll quit talking about the coof because we do live in Florida and it is kind of like it's a non-issue for the most part here at this point. And it really wasn't after, for me anyways, in my lifestyle, after those 9 weeks. But it was those lockdowns at the state that motivated me to also leave the Republican Party for the Libertarian Party. I started going to Libertarian meetings, and I also started going and speaking up at city council meetings because not long after the state lockdowns, local Jacksonville City Council passed an ordinance that would fine small businesses $500 if they had 50 or more people on the property because of the safety around coof, right? And this was late in 2020.
You have a neighbor that says you're supposed to give me I don't know, is it Duval?
Duval. That's what the Duval County, and it was, that saying was popularized back in the late 90s whenever the Jacksonville Jaguars were actually a decent football team, and on some of the local hip hop radio stations, you'd get the DJs on there, and the DJs would be from Duval County, but they actually got popular like doing shows out in Tallahassee or like parties or whatever out in Tallahassee because they were from Duval. They would yell Duval, and that's really the history of how it got popularized. And then the Jaguars players also popularized it. So now, like in the games and just walking around town, people will be yelling Duval. You'll be at somewhere else if you see somebody with a Jaguars shirt or something or Jumbo Shrimp T-shirt, you might yell Duval at them. So yeah, Duval.
He says
There you go. Sweet. I got one vote. Appreciate it.
He doesn't know anything about your politics yet, but he's down with you.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah, it was,
so you go and you start to pay attention to local
Yeah.
politics. Things are happening. Wait a minute now. You said you're talking about craft beer. What are you drinking?
Well, I'm not drinking a craft beer right now. I'm trying to watch my carbs, but I do have craft beer in the fridge. I'm not going to mention the brand that I'm drinking because I don't want to give the heavy the macro breweries a shout out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you. I just saw. I did not look like a craft beer bottle to me.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. That's why I'm trying to sip it real fast. I had a pina colada here, but I was like, I better take it easy.
You just lost that vote. There's no way my buddy Shot's gonna vote for a guy that drinks pina coladas.
This is legit. It's got rum in it. That's good. So, it's not a traditional pina colada. It's like a pina colada mixture with some Captain Morgan in it. But yeah. Usually
so you're paying attention. You're paying attention to the political landscape in Jacksonville, and so yeah, you've got DeSantis, who everybody's well, Tom, you're a libertarian. You know who Tom Woods is.
Yeah.
I don't know if you listen to him much, but
yeah, dude.
Woods has rubbed elbows with DeSantis, and now that he lives down there in Florida, and Woods is actually, strangely enough, it's funny to watch him. He's saying, look, if the Republicans are going to run somebody, I hope they run DeSantis.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, DeSantis isn't libertarian. That's the thing. But out of the Republican governors, other than, was it Kristi Noem up there around your neck of the woods? North
yeah,
Dakota,
she's
one of the Dakotas. But that's the only state that actually didn't lock down at all. So Florida did lock down. And I mean, I sent emails to DeSantis. He eventually had a town hall meeting with a bunch of local craft breweries, and they were essentially like, look, you're killing us. And I can't prove this, but you could probably find where it's possible that some macro brewing corporations, their lobbyists may have lobbied for, not necessarily for lockdowns, but the lockdowns definitely helped Anheuser-Busch, AB InBev sales, because you could only go in a big box store, so you could only get that type of beer. I mean, I'm sure you could buy something local, but it's been going on here in the state of Florida for a while, where the big beer industry, the big beer lobby, has been trying to pass laws to hurt the craft beer scene, because the craft beer scene is so popular everywhere, not just Florida, not just Jacksonville, that they're starting to lose money. But it's because I think my generation, like, look, if I'm going to go out and get a beer at a bar or restaurant, I want to have some flavor. You know what I mean? And I like to support local small businesses, and that's one way where I think we saw that everywhere, not just here. And other places were way worse, where way more businesses went out of business, small family-owned businesses outside of the state of Florida. But I know of it. I worked for one of those that closed their doors. You know what I mean? So, and another one was 2 weeks away. So yeah, basically the local politics, the power and control that local government had, it caught my attention, and I started going and speaking up at city council meetings. And it was at that same very first meeting where I spoke up against them finding small businesses. They also wanted to give Shad Khan $100 million for Lot J project, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's like, hold on, wait. You want to find small businesses, but you want to give hundreds of millions of taxpayer funding to a well-connected billionaire. Now, that got voted down by one vote, but I heard the city council and the lobbyists sitting up front saying, oh yeah, I think we got this one in the bag. But 100 people showed up speaking up against it. And the only people that were for it were spokespeople or people involved with local sports radio that it would benefit them. So it didn't pass. Well, fast forward a year later, they just repackage it. They do another project. They call it something different. They move it a couple blocks over, and it gets approved. And it got approved unanimously by both Republicans and Democrats. And we have a Republican supermajority here in Jacksonville. So if they were really fiscally conservative, any type of bill like that could easily get shut down. But we don't have any real Republicans here with any backbone. We got about 4 people that almost vote consistently, maybe close to the way I would if I was in city council, but they all voted for that, and I would have voted no. So
let's use that as a launching point then. So you're speaking out. How, just out of curiosity, roughly what's the total number of people that sit on the Jacksonville City Council?
So there are 19 city council members, and we have 14 districts, and that's what I was mentioning before in the green.
So you have 14 district elections, plus you have
5 at
large.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I'm running for a district position. We have 2 other Libertarians. One's running for another district position, District 8, which is a very Democrat-heavy district in Jacksonville. He's running as Libertarian. And another guy is running at large. So if you live in
both of them solid Libertarians, or are they more of the woke side?
Solid Libertarian. I would say like the guy running at large is Jerry Tubb-Rohrbaugh, and I'm sure we could, if you're interested, he might want to come on too. He's a local pastor here in Jacksonville, and he went through years ago where basically he bought a building that used to have a church in it, and he started his church in it. And then shortly after he bought the building, then I guess the fire marshal and or zoning and all that showed up and said, hey, you don't have a certificate of use or whatever, certificate of occupation, and shut his church down. And he was just trying to do what was right. But he was like, look, there was a church in here for, I don't know the time, but 10 years before I had this. And now all of a sudden, because I bought the building or am buying the building, now you come in and tell me I can't run a church, but there's been a church in here for 10 years. So he was emailing city council, never getting responses, trying to get with zoning, coding, and fire department, all that could never get the answers for what needed to be done. And he reached out to one of the guys, like local guys that does I forget, like almost like Consumer Reports, but like the deep dive investigative journalism guy, Ken Amaro. And that's really whenever he got traction and was able to figure stuff out, is once he was able to put the city on blast, basically. But that motivated him, all the help he couldn't receive. Like, that's supposed to be the role of your city council. It's like, yeah, they might not be able to fix your problem, but they should be able to point you in the right direction and say, here's who you need to talk to. So that's what motivated him to run. And then I'm going to take credit for me talking Tracy into running, just because I met him one of the first times I started showing up at Libertarian meetings, and like he was there, and then we had a guest speaker, and he was speaking up against this guest speaker, this organization that he had some connections with before. And I just liked the way he spoke and the way he thought. And I was like, yo, you need to run for city council. I was trying to tell him he needed to run for state rep, really, but running as third party, we have no experience. We didn't know how to run a political campaign before this. We're all just kind of flying at the seat of our pants and figuring it out as we go. And I think for the most part, we're doing pretty good. I mean, we're showing up at local political events. We're getting straw polls, beefing with woke lefties on Twitter. You know what I mean? So we're doing pretty good.
I love it. Well, so I mean, you've gotten to know a little bit about me, just kind of where I'm at. I'm a constitutional conservative, Republican leanings, but I'm finding that I've got a lot more in common with far more of the constitutional conservative wing of the Libertarian Party than I do with a lot of people that profess to be Republicans, is kind of what your experience has been. But there are going to be people watching going, okay, so what's the deal? Why are you talking to Libertarians? Why are you doing this Libertarian lowdown? So people who are tuning in for the first time, it's because as I had
Mr. Welty.
Well, I had Mr. Welty on. I had Spike on. He was my inaugural Libertarian Lowdown series.
And that's a good one to go with for the first one.
Yeah, I'm important. I'm kind of a big deal. I hope you get that reference.
A little bit.
Sarcasm on my part.
Yeah. Well, I
And
mean,
then I
like,
had
you've got Spike's a heavy hitter. I mean, he's going on like Fox Business and stuff, you know.
he's
Here's
on with Kennedy, and I don't know if you know who Kennedy is, but I had the biggest crush on Kennedy when I was a lot younger.
From MTV, right? That's where she got
Mhm.
her start.
Yeah, that's where she got her start, and she was even kind of libertarian back then. I think that's why I liked her, because she wasn't. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
but I also had last night. I had Jason Lyons on from Muddy Waters Media,
Yeah.
and I'm doing this because I want people to hear, instead of having almost this feeling that we have to reach out to moderate Democrats and try and pull them to the right, pull them to the constitutional conservative side. We should be reaching out to people who we are more closely aligned with philosophically on most issues, so that we're having less of a effort put into trying to convince them to change their perspective, but actually aligning on issues that are incredibly important to us. And one of those, and this is why I think this conversation with you is so important, is local government. I call it the local state.
Yeah.
The local state, and how important small government is, and why it's important to have guys like you that have that small government mentality, that conservative constitutional mentality, get elected. And what do you think? So I'll use terminology that's familiar to the libertarians in the room, or in the audience, as they tune in and or watch later. Would you lean more towards the Mises Caucus side of the spectrum, more like a little bit between the Mises Caucus and everyone else? Or definitely not a Wokey, obviously, since you're picking Twitter fights with them. But do you find yourself aligning more with the Mises side of things?
So I think I find myself more aligned with what the Mises Caucus has, from what I've heard that they say that they stand for. And so far, I think I like what I've seen for the 2 weeks since they've kind of had control. And I'll say, outside of people that live here locally and some random people that have contributed to my campaign here or there at ericparkerforjax.com, donate tabs at the top right website. Most of the people that have contributed to my campaign have been people that are in the Mises Caucus. Now, that's outside of like my friends and family and people here in our local affiliate. And but like I said, there's been random people that are just excited about what we're doing here in Jacksonville. So yep, see it right there, donate. But but I also understand, like, I do have some issues with some people that are in the Mises Caucus. I don't say issues like we're beefing, but just I wouldn't necessarily communicate that way. Like, but I'm also running for local office, so you have to be, I guess, paying attention to the way the messaging. So I don't know. I'm going to do a shout out for another podcast, Liberty Dad podcast. It's DL Cummings. He's our local affiliate chair, and he is Mises friendly, but he was also friendly with some prags and some people from, the left-leaning progressive group of the Libertarian Party, is the way I would like to word it. Now, I think some of the old guard, I think they call themselves the Cathedral Caucus, and I don't know if that was a joke or a pun, but like just the people that were hanging around. Like, I was brand new to the Libertarian Party in 2021. I went to the 2021 convention, and I saw whenever some people that were kind of those prags kind of got unseated, and it was a bitter pill for them to swallow. But, and maybe I was new, but I just tried having conversations with those people at that convention, and they just kind of blew me off. So the Mises
What?
people,
No. What?
yeah,
That happens in the Libertarian? No.
yeah. I mean, like, and the Mises people at least would have a conversation with me. And, you know, like I'm a Ron Paul Republican. So they're saying the Ron Paul revolution taking over the Republican or the Libertarian Party. Like, I like that idea, but I'm also not trying to burn any bridges or put up any barriers. We do need to work with people that we agree on. So as libertarians, like there are like criminal justice reform. That's where us and the Progressive Party, like not even in the Libertarian Party, but the Progressive Party, if we focused on issues and worked on those together, that's something we could do. But I'm not going to agree with progressives on socialism or economics at all. You know what I mean? So that's the issue. Sorry, I gotta.
You're using your phone. I understand.
Well, yeah, no, it's I'm using my phone and I'm smoking a brisket and they got an update. So can you hear it? I can turn that.
Uh-oh. You froze. Well, I'll continue to chat here since you're frozen. Whenever you're ready to come back in. There you go.
There you go. All right, cool. Sorry. Could you hear me or did I?
No, your finger was in and you froze. So
Okay. Yeah, sorry about
you're
that.
smoking a brisket, and I got distracted by the idea of a smoked brisket.
Yeah.
So
what's going on out there right now? But so yeah, I mean, like, but I guess I would lean more towards what the Mises Caucus says they are. Now, I'm not caucusing with anyone because I'm trying to appeal. I got to get votes from non-libertarians to win an election. You know what I mean? So if I was to caucus with the Mises Caucus, people might think that pigeonholes me into a certain group of voters, a certain block of voters. And I got to appeal to everyone. And there are ways that I can, I think, on certain issues, appeal to some people. But my hope is that whenever I have a conversation with someone that we disagree on something, they can at least see like why I'm coming from a certain perspective. So, but I would say for the most part, if I had to choose, I'd probably lean more Mises than not. Maybe somewhere in the middle of like, not Prags. I gotta understand the bad name that Prags get now because they're saying, oh, they're woke. But what I think that they have been doing successful is trying to maintain a political party for so long. Now, it's been 50 years and we haven't gotten any legitimate candidates elected. So, you know, we got some work to do still. Was that a non-answer? Was that I just
that was a very politician answer. So.
Well,
you're already nailing the politician thing there, bro.
Exactly. I guess what I'm saying is, for what Mises says they stand for, like I'm not caucusing with them, so I haven't had any of the backdoor conversations. I don't really know, but for what they say they stand for, I agree with them, and I've liked what they've been doing on Twitter, and like our state affiliate can still kind of do its own thing outside of national. But our state affiliate is very Mises heavy. Not everyone that's in
I mean, the chair, the now chair of the entire party across the national platform is from Florida.
Yeah, I mean,
and she's in part of the Mises.
She's from California, so she was the yes, McCardle's from California, but like she was the chair of LA affiliate. I'm pretty sure, but. She travels a lot.
That's what it was. Somebody had been talking about having
she was
been with her in Florida for an engagement. I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
It was at the convention, yeah. But I mean, like, I know a lot of people that took some of the national positions, like region reps and this, that, and the other, are from Florida. So Florida is we've always had a libertarian, like our culture is libertarian here in Florida. You know, the Florida man, that's a meme, right? Like that's legit. Like we just want to be left.
I don't know if you really want to like throw that out there as a representative of being a libertarian. Like Florida man has a very bad reputation for, like
maybe outside of Florida, but we are the epitome of like live and let live and leave. Let us alone, right? So that's our thing here. And you kind of tell that like Florida for the first time, I think in 2021, is now a red state. It's always been had more registered Democrats than Republicans. It's always been kind of purple. Every election year, it's always like, well, which way are they going to vote? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But 2021 is the first time, and that's just because of the great exit from all of the other blue states, where I'm thinking conservative leaning people were like, okay, we finally had enough. Let's sell what we have and move to, I heard Texas, Tennessee, and Florida were the top 3 states, and Jacksonville and Tampa were 2 of the top cities for people migrating out of, blue. I would say Republicans leaving blue states, or right-leaning people leaving left-leaning states. So
you want to represent your city council district,
yeah,
and you're bringing constitutionally minded, conservative values from a libertarian perspective to that city council, and you get elected. What are you going to do to maintain that? Because you're not going to be caucusing. Let's just be honest.
yeah,
The old guard Republicans aren't going to embrace you as a brother. Even
yeah,
if
no.
you're, they're not going to go, oh, hey, bro, we know that we share a lot in common. They're going to be like, you're an outsider.
Well, and so
this should be a reason for people to vote for you, by the way.
yeah. So the district I'm in's heavy Republican. It's like the last city council election in 2019, the Republican beat the Democrat by 70.9% of the vote. Like, it was huge swing. And I think that has a lot to do with the way like local elections are. They're always in an off year. 2023 is the election we're going to be in. All that there's going to be in that election is local offices. It's not like there's midterms or governor or president. And I think they do that on purpose, because then the 2 major parties, Republican or Democrat, can get their base and get their person elected. My issue is Jacksonville, even though it's a super majority Republican city council, they're not fiscally conservative Republicans. There's about 4 out of the 19 that would vote fiscally conservative. So, and I think a lot of them are just, they're establishment politicians that are interested in the connections that they get being on city council for their businesses or whatever, or their nonprofits that they chair. They want to get their nonprofits money. They want to help out the developers that they have deals with. All of that is happening in the
heck
almost across the board. Every seat there it's corruption. I mean, that's really what it is. But that's super majority Republican. So I would not want to build coalitions with those types of people. That's not who I am. I'm trying to bring true transparency to city council, and they're going to continue to do the status quo. So, which is, in my opinion, the 2 major parties' major focus is, and how they choose their establishment candidates is who has the connections and who can bring the most money to their political party. So, and I would have never been that guy. I don't have those business connections here in Jacksonville. What I do have is a gift of, what would I say? I'm willing to peel back the layers and see what's really going on. And that's just now getting started. Like, these last 2 years, up until this point, I never paid attention to local politics. But all it takes
is it safe to say, I mean, you've already alluded to this, but would it be safe to say that part of that is coming from the fact that your eyes were open? Well, you said that in your bio on campaign site that you're a follower of Christ.
Yeah.
So we hear about, biblically we talk about Paul's conversion on the road to Damascus and the scales falling off of his eyes. Did you kind of have a political, philosophical road to Damascus experience over the last 2 years, seeing how both sides of the political aisle were kind of selling out the base, and all of a sudden, wow, like, what the heck's going on? People who I thought were on my side are clearly not representing me.
I think I saw that in 2016 with, and even before, like with Ron Paul, the way the Republican Party treated Ron Paul. And it's like, now everything he brought up has come true. And he was talking about inflation before it was this serious. He was talking about out of control spending. He was talking about corporate welfare. He was talking about all the issues that we see causing what everyone in America has to deal with now.
Yeah, bro,
And
but bro, yeah, bro, you've got to save. They're too big to fail, bro. So you got to give them money, bro.
yeah, no, and you know what's crazy is you remember Occupy Wall Street, that's really what it started out as. And I know we're gonna get off on a random tangent here, was like, hey, don't bail out the banks. But then I don't know if it was the establishment put some agent provocateurs in there. It's like, let's change this to become super socialist and woke. But in the beginning, it was people talking about, hey, don't bail out the major banks. But then it became, oh, let's eat the rich or whatever, tear down the 1%. It's like, it's not necessarily the rich people, but both Republicans and Democrats benefited from the banks getting bailed out. So, I mean, because that was their the lobbyists that funded their reelection campaigns. You know what I mean? So that's really how it works is, and I don't necessarily mean all of my opponents are that way to where like they're getting big bucks from the major donors, but you can look at the deep established people that have been in city council for 18 years. And those are the types that are getting these kickbacks and making all these community deals.
You become a part of the royalty.
Yeah.
Is really what I mean. I just finished reading a book by Burnham called The Machiavellians, and I talked about this last night with Jason. But if you listen to Woods has talked about the elite as well. But Burnham's thesis is that we're going to always have the elite. It's going to be impossible for us to not have the elite. The question is the caliber of the elite and recognizing it. And oftentimes when the elite get into a position of power, they do everything in their power to stay in that position because, well, I know what's best for you, and my goal is to always represent you. The problem is that very rarely remains the case. And so even, so if you're successful in your campaign, you have now, whether you like it or not, even though you're a common guy, I mean that in a positive way, you now have elevated yourself through hard work and effort into a position of being part of the elite. The question is what type of elite are you going to be? Are you going to be that kind of elite that gets ensconced and is there for 18 to 20 years and gets further and further removed from the people you represent? Or are you going to be the kind of elite who actually is elite in that you're different than all the others and you represent your people?
See, that's where I don't think I'm going to be one of the elites. I'm going to be a representative of my district. But I think
it just puts you in a different camp of elite.
Yeah, I mean,
and I mean that there again, and I want you to understand, I don't mean it as a negative, Eric.
Yeah,
I don't.
No, I mean like
it's a positive.
It would be a major deal. It would be a major accomplishment to win my election. And then, like me though, I'm gonna probably vote no on almost every. I'll definitely vote no on every tax increase. I'm probably gonna vote no on a lot of spending bills, especially if it's all forms of corporate welfare. I'm gonna vote no on. And I spoke at city council meetings for 6 months straight. There was some form of corporate welfare at every single one of them that I was able to pick and speak up against, specifically on certain bills for 6 months straight, every other Tuesday. So, that's the type of leader I'm going to be. And I might be the lone, unless it's me and two other libertarians, we'll be the only no votes probably on a lot of these bills. And they'll probably still pass. But what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to hold those other people accountable and point out what they're doing and whose money they're spending and how they're not representing their constituents' concerns. But the truth is most people aren't paying attention to what's going on locally and you've said it, this is where it counts. This is where you can go speak up for at least 3 minutes most of the time to your representative on anything that you want to talk to them about. You can send them an email, and then if they don't respond, and this happened to me, You can show up at city council meetings and you can say, I sent my representative at District 2, which is my district, an email and he didn't respond. And then he did call me into the green room to speak to me. And I showed him on my phone and said, is that your email? Yep, there it is. Sent to you 4 days ago or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, he was like, that's my bad. I apologize. But I was able to show up in person and call him out for not doing his job. So,
right. Well, and that's,
I'm listening. I got to go. I'm going to step over here. I can hear you. I just want to check on this brisket. All right. I'm listening.
Brisket is always a higher priority.
Yeah, no, we should be good. Hold on. It's, the grill is maintained temp and.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a brisket emergency. He has to check his brisket. No, the thing that really true representative governance, it happens at the most local level, and that's why being involved at the local level, school boards, county commissions, and city councils is so important, is the ability to go and speak directly to your representatives. And on top of that is good luck doing that on the floor of the House or the floor of the Senate. They're not going to let you. They're not going to open it up for public comments on the floor of the House or the floor of the Senate. And so we really do need to. Oh, he's going to show us the brisket now.
No, that's the difference is like, and I emailed my representative. I emailed crappy Marco Rubio. You see that right there? Hold on.
Oh man.
Right there.
Oh man. How far away is it from? Oh dude.
Oh, it just got the 154. So I'm gonna wrap it at 165. I put it on at like 3:30. Probably be taking off at like 4 a.m. in the morning and letting it maybe later. I'll lower the temperature down because I got it at 225. But after church in the morning, I'm taking it over to my dad's house for Father's Day. So, you know.
Dude, oh, man.
Well, sorry. I mean, like, it's like, man, you're trying to smoke a brisket, do a podcast. But, and let's know I wasn't lying about that. So.
I didn't suspect you. Man, if you lie about brisket, you shouldn't even be.
That's right. You should be unelectable.
Unelectable if you lie about brisket.
So
my show is now officially turned into a smoking show.
There you go, barbecue recipes. And this is usually I use like a different rub. This time I just did it Texas style, salt and black pepper. That's it. That's all I put on it this time. So we'll see how that turns out. Usually I do it in a rub, but we'll see. This is my second time doing a brisket.
Brisket's tricky, bro.
It's not the easiest. And if
you could dry a brisket out real quick because there's not a lot of fat on a brisket.
Exactly. And that's where like usually I'll do pulled pork or ribs, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of my wheelhouse. But I was like, brisket, I'll give it. Last time I did it, it was good, but you know how like the grain of the meat changes from the flat and the point, and
absolutely.
I was trying to cut it and I couldn't get good slices, I'm whatever. And right now the price of beef, if you're gonna go get a brisket, and if you mess it up, you just which I got a good deal on this one.
No, there is no messing up a brisket.
Exactly. I mean,
you eat that bad boy no matter what.
Eat every bite of it. So no, but sorry.
Even if you're making burnt tips out of it, or burnt ends, you are
exactly. It'll get eaten either way. We'll make tacos, whatever. But
oh, dude, stop.
I've sent emails to my representative, Marco Rubio, as a senator, talking about like, hey,
you said something, and I understand why, but Jason brought that up last night because yesterday on his show he had Miskovoy on, who, by the way, I'm working on getting him on as well.
Yeah.
He's running against Rubio, and Rubio's been coming up a lot because I think a lot of people, they see that R behind Rubio's name, and they're like, "Oh, Rubio's a conservative." Like, dude, he's not. He's actually not a very good representative of his people in Florida. Say that again.
He's got a terrible constitutional voting record. TheFreedomIndex.org is a good place to go, and you can look up all the representatives and their constitutional voting record. Up here where I live, we also got like John Rutherford. I like to call him Red Flag Rutherford because he was pushing for that a couple years ago, but the Second Amendment local lobby here kind of like yo, and they are there's two people primarying him as we speak in this next election. Now I don't know if they're going to win because Rutherford does have, he's retired JSO sheriff, and he's got the police unions backing. We have a heavy military presence here in Jacksonville, so he's got the military industrial complex backing all those lobbyists. You know what I mean? And so he's the establishment guy, and that's what I'm saying is what we do need is maybe it doesn't even have to be libertarians. We need small government constitutionalists, freedom-loving individuals. If you want to run as a third party, fine, or even independent, no party affiliated, but it's difficult. The political machine, there is a definite benefit if you run as a Republican or a Democrat, depending on the politics of where you live. I am running as a Libertarian in a heavy Republican district because I was all but told essentially that I don't have enough money and I don't have the connections, and I wouldn't be the Republican Party's choice. So, and also all the other reasons. Before I ever decided to run, I just left the Republican Party because I got fed up with the out-of-control spending. All of the nonsense, all of the stuff that they tell us in a campaign promise that they stand for and what they're going to do, and then they get in office. And I'll use David Perdue, Senator of Georgia. And a lot of people were mad at Shane Hazel because they say that he stole that election from him and gave it to the Democrats. It's like David Perdue had a less constitutional voting record in Georgia than AOC. So is it really a loss? That, yeah, I mean, it is. If that guy you could trust the way he's going to vote on something.
Well, yeah, but that's exactly it. It's not a loss. The Republicans didn't lose anything there because the guy was constantly voting with the Democrats anyway. So why is it? It's not a loss. And that's something that, once again, why I launched this series and why you flashed the label at us, bro. You should be ashamed of yourself.
I'm trying to get it out of the way as fast as I could. It's empty now. Don't judge me. I'm just kidding.
One of the reasons is that most of the time we're not being represented. We're just I was having a conversation with a cousin today, and there are Democrats who are walking away from the Democrat Party because they don't feel represented by their party anymore. I don't know why. And they're trying to come over to the Republican side, and they're seeing a lot of the same drift in the Republican Party, and the Republicans don't want anything to do with them because they're just trying to come in here and corrupt our party. And I'm like, really? Trying to corrupt the party? I mean, you guys you're only about 5 years behind on your socio-cultural views. And I'm sitting here going, we have got to start linking arms with the conservative blue dog Democrat types who are maybe walking away from their party. We've got to link arms with conservative, constitutionally minded libertarians, even if we don't agree lockstep on every single issue. Like, all right, so, take it to the local level. Maybe that libertarian guy, and I doubt this would ever happen because the two things very rarely exist in the same world, but maybe that libertarian guy is a sanctuary city guy when it comes to the Second Amendment, and he's all for turning even if the state disagrees, they're able to turn their municipality into a sanctuary for people who want to open carry or conceal carry constitutionally. And the police force and the sheriff's office staff have all been told you will not enforce any federal or state laws regarding that in this jurisdiction. And so they do some local nullification on that. But at the same time, they're consistent and say, but we're also not going to allow the feds to walk in here and just start IDing people because they might look like they're from another country.
Yeah. So,
and you should be consistent. You should be consistent. Now, there are some questions about, if the federal government has a responsibility to protect our borders, but you're being consistent, and that's what people are looking for. They want that consistency, and they're not getting it from the Republicans or the Democrats right now.
Well, and that's what they're not getting it because a lot of people are running as rhinos, Republican name only, or I've coined the term, I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, but dinos, Democrats in name only. You know what I mean? Like, regardless if I agree with a Democrat or not, like, if you were in one of those political parties and you kept electing a guy that didn't vote the way that he should, which in my opinion, regardless, should be constitutional. And that's what, like, the Second Amendment sanctuary city here in Jacksonville, we aren't one, but every county around us is. Nassau to the north, St. John's kind of to the south, Clay to the west. All of them are Second Amendment sanctuary cities, and we aren't. And if I'm elected, that's going to be one of the first bills that I'm going to author and put up for a vote. And it probably won't even make it through a Republican supermajority committee because
that should tell people that at a local level, on a city the size of Jacksonville, that's predominantly got a Republican supermajority, you've got a candidate for city council sitting here saying, "I'm going to do this," and I'm pretty sure that even with the Republicans in, it will not pass.
Yeah, and that's the issue. Yeah, and the second bill that I'm going to author. The first two. I don't know.
Hold on, your volume got.
Sorry, you got. The first two is going to be, the other one's going to be decriminalizing marijuana. And once again, that's like, hey, look, let's hold these Democrats accountable, right? Let's see how they would vote on this. And all of the other small government.
Your audio got weird again.
Now, that's a harder pill to swallow for, conservatives, constitutionalists, decriminalizing marijuana. But that's one reason why I'm running as Libertarian. Go ahead.
Your audio got weird again. Did your headset try and reconnect with your phone?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but your audio is real. It's back to.
So what happened is someone tried calling, and I hung up because I'm doing this from my phone. I guess it hasn't come back. Hold on. I don't know why it's doing this. Does that still sound bad?
That's a little better now.
You got more quiet too. I don't want to. Should I try leaving and come back? You think that might help? I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead. That's fine.
All right. Leave.
Yeah. So what Eric was saying, if you couldn't quite hear him, is that one of the first things he's going to do is try and make Jacksonville a sanctuary city.
Better.
Yeah, good again.
Yeah, someone tried calling, I declined the phone call, but then it messed everything up. So sorry about that.
No, it's what it is. It's you should have. I didn't tell you you would be required to go out and buy an all brand new system just to do this. So
I am interested. Like, I did buy some podcast stuff. Like, I have the little light here with the ring. I don't know if you could tell that, but and then I bought like a mixer type thing and it sounded worse than just doing it on my phone. Like, and I bought it like 6 months ago. I was like,
all right, so it wasn't because of me. I thought, like,
no. This was I've done a few different podcasts. I was on Swampcast. I was on Not a Real Libertarian a couple times. Not a Real Veteran, I think, is one. It's a break off from Not a Real Libertarian. And then I did
that's an interesting title, Not a Real Veteran. I don't.
Yeah. Well, because if in the veteran community, you know how hard we could be a little hard on each other. Like, oh, I'm Army, Air Force isn't real military, whatever, joking around with people. You know what I mean? Like, we obviously, Coast Guard isn't even the military. Those types of jokes.
Well, they're not.
Kind of like how in the libertarian community, if I say something like, I'm okay with increasing the security at the local public schools, and it might take some tax dollars to do that. Someone would be like, "Oh, you're not a real libertarian because you want to spend tax dollars on something." You get what I'm saying? Like, that's a joke in the libertarian community, and it's all about who's the real libertarian, who's read more Frederick Bastiat or whatnot. You know what I mean? Murray Rothbard or Ludwig von Mises. Like I've read Anatomy of the State, and I'm reading The Law by Frederick Bastiat. That's pretty much it. You know what I mean? As far as I've read a few pages of Atlas Shrugged. So
well, that doesn't make you more or less libertarian. It just makes you very patient. I made it all the way through Atlas Shrugged last summer. So
yeah, I haven't. So
well, you're campaigning, and I don't have a life. So
well, I mean, you're podcasting. That's something. So
well, yeah, I wish my views reflected my subscriber base, bro.
You got a good subscriber base?
2,200, almost 2,210 for my subscriber base on YouTube. And I went from getting several thousand views on my videos a few weeks ago to now it's dropped down to, I'm lucky if I break 100. So they're.
You know why? Because started having libertarians on your podcast. And now they're
it started to decline right before Spike. So,
that is weird.
Yeah, they're suppressing me big time because I was starting to get some traction and get some views. So they let you start to earn income through things.
Yeah, monetizing the videos, but then they'll down throttle you in the algorithm and all that.
Oh yeah, because it's, and they can they'll put you anyway. So, but
yeah, I think
so. You need to share this with all your friends and make sure that they watch the whole thing and then share it with their friends, because this is not just for my views, but because this is really important for people to hear. You're looking at this going, okay, Second Amendment sanctuary city, and also decriminalize weed, marijuana, cannabis.
I got somebody on the other day when I said marijuana, they're like, please use cannabis. Marijuana is racist. And I'm like, look, I'm using the terminology that the establishment's using right now.
Marijuana is racist.
What? So if you go back and look up, I forget his name, but the paper guy way back in the day, whenever cannabis was made illegal, they used the term marijuana because it was like it has a Mexican sound to it to make people, a Hispanic sound to it to make people afraid of, it was a big, that part is true. And Hunter S. No, that's the guy from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Which you probably read.
Yeah, I've definitely seen the movie. So, but I can't remember his name now. But
anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm over everything being racist.
Like he owned a bunch of paper mills and paper companies and newspapers. Essentially, wanted cannabis made illegal because if it was legal, it would be much easier for hemp to be produced, and it would take over the forestry industry and the paper industry. That's all. There's all kinds of research you could do on it.
No, I'm just really not interested in the choice of a word.
You remember the Reefer Madness or whatever? Yeah, like it's all, that was around that time where it was publicity of propaganda to make weed illegal, essentially, is what happened. And they did that so that hemp didn't take over paper production because it's much easier to produce. But
Amber said, about each branch, all y'all are serving our country, each branch in its own way. Thankful for all of you. Thanks, Amber. We appreciate that. Amber, if you really like veteran conversation, you should tune in on. Well, you should tune in on for all of my shows, Amber. So if you haven't subscribed, you need to. And if you are subscribed, you also need to head over to Veteran Nation. I co-host that on Tuesday nights on several different networks and several different platforms with my buddy Skipper. And we talk about veteran-related issues. And we bring people in from every branch, even reserves and guard guys. We'll talk to them.
I mean, you're talking. I was a reservist right now, and that was another one of those not a real veteran jokes.
Oh yeah, we'll even talk to those guys because
exactly. So I mean,
we need somebody. We need people. We need the reserves and the guard guys to come in and play the bad guys when we're doing training missions.
Exactly. I mean, like I deployed to Iraq and Guantanamo Bay. I ran into a guy the other day. I was like, reservist, that means you didn't go anywhere. And I was wearing my Iraqi freedom hat. And I was like, I definitely was in Iraq from
The
2000.
vast majority of, especially combat arms guys,
Yeah,
that have
I
been in
was.
since we started this stupid war on terrorism,
So I would,
have deployed.
even though I was in what I would say the joke of the army, the real military as a joke. I know a bunch of people. And this is a Navy community. I got best friends that's Marines. I got guys that were in the Navy. When I was in Gitmo, they called it the Joint Task Force. You had every branch of service was there, essentially supporting the same mission. So it's totally a joke whenever I say the not a real veteran thing, but that is a joke within the veteran community. We give each other a hard time, and even like my fellow Army veterans would give me a hard time because I was military police. So, you know what I mean? They're still going to be like, oh, geez, God, cop. You know what I mean? So it happens.
Military pigs. That's what that stands for. MP, military pig.
So, but yeah, thank you for that comment, Amber. It was a joke. Hope I didn't tee anyone off on that.
No.
So, hope that doesn't get you shadow banned. I'm just kidding.
No, that you could say whatever you want negative about like vets or whatever. They don't care.
I'm going to not do that. So
I know. So here's where you're going to run into your resistance on the decriminalization aspect, is that the allegedly pro law and order side of the argument is going to be against it because law enforcement by and large doesn't want it decriminalized, because that takes, I have to be very careful how I say this. It takes away a big chunk of their ability to say, look at how we're fighting crime.
That's exactly right. And you're right. The law enforcement lobby side, or the police unions, let's be more specific here, feel differently about it than every single officer I've spoken to. They're like, yeah, the last thing I want to be doing is hassling people over a little bit of weed, or even a bit of weed. Whenever, if it was legalized or decriminalized first and then legalized eventually, like. Isn't it like 26 different states at some point now, or I think almost fully legal, some form of decriminalization or legalization? And then like almost every state has some form of medical. So technically, if you go and you get a prescription for it here in Florida, they can't do anything to you. Now there's other issues
but they can't. They do though. This is where the libertarian mindset has to really play in, or the constitutionally conservative mindset has to come in. You know, like here in Minnesota, if you have a prescription for medical marijuana, you can't have a firearm.
Exactly. So, and there is an issue, and I hate to carry water for a Democrat candidate for governor right now, especially since I don't know if you heard Libertarians are running one, but she brought that up because she's pro marijuana, but she's not pro gun. Like, she wants to take our guns away just as everyone else, but she said it's a constitutional right in the Florida state constitution to own a firearm, and it's constitutionally allowed for medical marijuana. And she said, this was on a podcast somewhere, that you should be able to have a medical marijuana card and a concealed carry permit. And she's currently running the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, which handles, I'm pretty sure, both of those issues. So that's her, but that's her also pandering to a certain base. And that's also why I think the Libertarian Party is running a candidate, because she went on Patrick Bet-David's podcast and was sounding, she even brought up the word, that's a libertarian idea. So she was trying to appeal to a libertarian base. And you'll notice DeSantis tries to do that too, because although we're not winning any elections, we could help decide an election depending on which way libertarians or constitutionalists or independents or party.
I think that DeSantis probably has a lot of libertarians in his ear. I mean,
yeah, no, I agree. And so, and I would have said, getting off track here a little more, but that all the good stuff that Trump accomplished when he was president, the few things, in my opinion, that, you know, I think he had Rand Paul in his ear the whole time. Like, I'm telling, like the not getting involved in any more wars overseas and trying to cut back and I don't know. Was there anything else good that he did? I'm trying to remember. But then all the bad
Also gave
stuff.
us Operation Warp Speed. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, some people would argue that helped the medical industrial complex. Others would argue that was a good thing because we were able to get multiple vaccines out way quicker. I think it was good because it got rid of some red tape. But I think, like in the FDA limitations on it and all that. But
I'm just adamantly opposed to the idea of building a plan where the United States military is being used to distribute the jab across the country, and even at one point saying, if we have to, we'll go door to door.
So
that's very non. That's
especially so. Mara Macy is running for Congress here in the state of Florida as a Republican, and that's the whole reason why she decided to run, is because of she knows some people that are currently in the Navy that are really close to her, that were forced and refused and are currently in lawsuits with the Department of Navy and Department of Defense on those. And I think we've seen some stuff in the news lately, multiple lawsuits going in our favor, meaning against the establishment and against the what'd you say we call it? The regime. You know what I mean? So we're seeing some stuff, but it took some people to put their careers and their lives and their livelihood at jeopardy. And it, like some people got other than honorable discharges over it. But I think
I lost my career of almost 13 years in the law enforcement community as a deputy in a detention center in the third largest metro area in this. No, for standing up to the governor's mandates up here in Minnesota.
Okay.
And for defending small business owners, not like in a physical sense, but
just
having them on my,
speaking up on their behalf, and
actually, critically breaking down in one particular case why a local prosecuting attorney in a different jurisdiction than where I lived or where I was working, I stood up on my principles and my convictions and was attacked for it by my former employer. So yeah, I completely relate to what these people are going through. Let's take a dive back into your views. And I want to tread on this one carefully. Like the conservative constitutionalist mindset of the Republicans is allegedly very, very we have to be. I want to there again. There is a trend in the movement that everybody who is a conservative, whether it's a constitutional conservative and like a libertarian or a constitutional conservative Republican, you had better be adamantly in support of everything law enforcement does. And we're starting to see a shift at the local level with a lot of constitutional conservatives saying, I have a lot of questions about the things that law enforcement does. And a lot of concerns with what I'm seeing, not necessarily, from the guys that have been around for a while, because quite frankly, the guys that have been in for the career field for a while are some of the strongest, not all of them, but are some of the strongest on, like, I'm not involving myself in this dispute. I'm not gonna kick this guy out of a school board meeting because he won't follow your orders. You're freaking school board chair. Your position doesn't have any authority over a guy wanting to wear a facial covering in a school board meeting or city council meetings. Or I'm not doing that. But what we're seeing is that as those guys retire, these constitutionally minded officers and deputies retire, they're being replaced now by kids who've not been taught the Constitution. And they don't understand liberty. They don't understand constitutionally enshrined, not granted, constitutionally enshrined rights. I think that's got to be a really big concern for people at the local level right now, because the conservative base is kind of peeling away from blind support of law enforcement. And I think rightly so. How does that kind of thinking impact you as a candidate for a city council of a pretty large metro area in the state of Florida.
So I would say, like, I think what happened in 2020 with the riots, with all of the regimes and the lockdowns and all of that, and then also the Supreme Court ruling after the Parkland shooting when the cop refused to go in and save the families. What happened here in Uvalde, I don't know if I'm saying it right, the other school shooting where apparently the cops.
Uvalde.
Yeah, Uvalde, standing outside the school for 75 minutes before they ever went in. Like, then the Supreme Court ruling on multiple occasions that police have no duty to protect. And the purchase, after all the riots that were going on and the police refusing to go into areas to help people, some of these communities being where predominantly Democrat, where there's not a lot of people with their firearms to protect themselves, the ability to protect themselves. The lot changed in 2020, and rightfully so. Like, we saw what could happen whenever, you put all of your faith and trust in the government. You know what I mean? And I'll say this though, like, I mean, my brother was a JSO officer. I have respect for law enforcement that's doing their job correctly and believes in the Bill of Rights, believes in, the Constitution, and believes in individual liberty. I think what you're having now is, if there are a certain level of people in law enforcement, and you can attest to this, that have those same convictions that I have, a lot of them are deciding, hey, does the leadership here in this organization feel the same way as I do? And if they don't, I'm walking away. I'm not going to stay here, and I'm not going to, and everyone has been doing that lately.
And a lot of them are saying, I can't find a place where I am finding leadership that does agree with me, so I'm just going to get out of the career field.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what JSO is hurting for people. But that's where, like, it's a weird line. Like, if it just decriminalizing marijuana isn't going to save the city of Jacksonville. But everyone that I had a conversation with, let's just use that as an example, every officer I've had a conversation with has said, I would much rather get rid of that as something that we waste resources on and focus on violent crime. Spend more time, money, and resources on a violent crime task force instead of a drug task force. And
I think if you're going to spend money, that's a great way to do it. But what would you think of proposing, as when you get elected, what would you think about proposing a mandatory monthly and then a mandatory yearly requirement for everybody in the law enforcement career field within the Jacksonville area, whether it be like the individual municipal police or the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, a mandatory monthly training coupled with a intensive yearly training on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and police duties?
I don't know how often, but I think it'd be a great idea for that to be a required training, especially in the police academy. You know what I mean? Like, and just to get it clear, JSO is one. Like, when they consolidated in 1968, they took city and the sheriff's office, police department.
So there is no police. There is no municipal police.
City police. They all fall under the. Now, hold on. Jacksonville Beach, that falls in Duval County, has their own, and there's also the city of Baldwin. It's like really small. The town of Baldwin, it's not even city, that falls in Duval County, but I don't even think that they have a police force. They're super small. But yeah, I think that's a great opportunity to just like keep people informed and educated. Maybe they could get like a constitutional lawyer to teach them, because they learn law. They take law classes, but do they take constitutional rights, the Fourth Amendment, the right to due process, all of that, the Fifth Amendment? Like, do they ingrain in them the importance of allowing the people that they're, interacting with on a daily basis.
I know I dropped that on you kind of out of the blue, but that's the reason why I'm having this conversation with you is because I want to talk about this on the local level. And I'll tell you, even if they
a mandate would do it. I mean, you can make that part of the
curriculum. But why not? We mandate a use of force training. We mandate firearms training. We mandate driving. And all those things are important. I don't want some guy that doesn't know how to shoot, doesn't know how to use his taser, doesn't know the effects of pepper spray. I don't want that guy or how to properly use, certain types of striking blows so as to not be fatal. But what on earth would be wrong with at least a yearly refresher, intensive refresher?
Well, and you could couple that in with all right, so I've asked 0.5% of annual retraining in Jacksonville for JSO is de-escalation of force. You could put in the constitutional training with that because that's really got a lot of if you're using due process correctly, you're probably less likely to get into a issue where you need to use de-escalation force. You know what I mean? So you could just put that in there, but I want to see that increased to at least double, which would only be 1% of the time. That's still doubling the amount of de-escalation of force training. And if they're not learning the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and people's individual liberties and all of that, and learning why those things are important, if they're not doing that, definitely make that, I don't know, 40 hours a year, 1 week. And the conversation I have with people is they're worried about it cutting into their off time. And I was like, well, you might have to hire 4 employees, change up the shifts, have more shifts so you would get paid on shift to go to these trainings for a couple hours before or after your shift. You know what I mean?
I will tell you, I'll tell you right now that ongoing, continuing ed for anybody in law enforcement is paid. One way or another, it's paid. There's no such thing as doing it on my off time.
Yeah. What I'm getting at is filling the position, filling the shifts, having people on.
No, but what I'll tell you is my experience with this across the board is every single agency requires continuing education on things from first aid and CPR, and that is not done on their workday. It is done on a paid day off where, it's your day off, but once a month you're having to come in and do CPR and first aid and cultural sensitivity training and gender sensitivity training and anti-sexual harassment training and all of those other things. Those are all being done on your days off anyway. All of it, period.
Yeah.
Or you're being sent to a school and getting paid to go, where instead of having 2 days off in the middle of the week, you're there Monday through Friday. The idea, if people are telling you, well, we got to do it on our days off, they're not being honest and they just don't want to talk about it.
Well,
and this is the thing.
What they're worried about is giving up more days off, even though they're going to get paid for it, but giving up more days off. You know what I mean? I think
and I get what you're saying, but there again, I don't care what excuse they're giving. We need to take, I would say there are certain things I'm not saying that we shouldn't be sensitive to cultures, but there is more time put into teaching cops how to not be guilty of implicit bias than there is in teaching people how to not violate the private citizens' constitutional rights, constitutionally enshrined liberties. If you could teach people how to not violate people's constitutionally enshrined liberties at the local municipal level when it comes to law enforcement, all those other things would go away.
I was just about to say that. That would solve that implicit bias issue, really. Right?
Because I don't care if you're a black guy who hates Mexicans or a Mexican who hates black guys, and you're a Mexican cop and you harass black guys. Or a white guy who harasses Mexicans or whatever, or Mexicans who harasses white guys, if you teach them the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and say, I don't care what your views on the individual people are, all that other stuff goes away because now you're respecting their liberty.
Yeah, no, I totally like that. You're exactly right. That makes sense. The conversations I've had, whenever this was post George Floyd, and I was like having conversations with law enforcement officers. This was pretty. I don't think I had decided to run for city council at that point yet, but I was starting to pay attention to what was going on. You know what I mean? But I was hanging out with just friends that were cops, and I was just talking about de-escalation of force training and why
Conflict
there's so
resolution.
little here locally. You know what I mean? There wasn't enough of it, in my opinion. And I've heard experts, former Navy SEALs, turn law enforcement and training and stuff like that, say that 5% of the job, so not your day off, but 5% of your time as a cop, at least 5% should be training, and it should be all types of training, de-escalation of force, active shooter, everything at least. And currently in Jacksonville, it's less than 1% of their time is that training. And a lot of the stuff you're talking about is probably some PowerPoint, and they click through it, they get a certificate, say they're good. And that's probably the best for those things that aren't necessarily life-saving or important. Now, the Bill of Rights and people's constitutional liberties and freedoms, that's important to me for sure. And it should be important to every law enforcement officer. I don't know that there is that much of an impact.
Here's so I know you haven't broached it as a topic with them, but I think this is an area where constitutional conservatives, both Republican and Libertarian, as they're running for local office, whether it's a county commission or a city council, needs to be a priority on the plate right now. When I get in, I will be advancing legislation at the local level to require 20 hours a year of refresher training on the Constitution and the role of law enforcement officers to make sure, not enforce, to ensure that they are not violating people's liberties.
And
according to the Constitution.
That is something that, because we decide on, when we do, city council votes on the budget for JSO, and it's half of our city budget. Is that could be an amendment added into the bill? Like, yeah, I will vote yeah on your spending if the 20 hours of constitutional training is in there. So
a year.
I just wrote down your recommendation, and I mean, and I'm gonna add that to my platform.
So here's why I'm saying a year is that you could spread that 20 hours out across 12 months very easily, and do it. So I'll give you my perspective, and you had said, maybe in the academy. Well, okay, yeah, in the academy is fine, but we also know that they have continuing education after the academy when you're on the job, because that stuff doesn't always stay in your mind.
Yeah.
And to me, the idea of a minimum of 20 hours a year, what that does is that puts it in front of them at every training throughout the year, where they're getting an hour to maybe 2 hours at every training every month when they're doing their training as part of their training. Not that they have to come in on yet again another day off and sit down for 8 hours on a day off, but just one of their regular training, continuing ed training days. You're going to show us a brisket again, and I'm just going to have to disconnect. I'm not.
No, you keep going. I won't show you. I don't want to distract you. Continue what you're saying.
And so it done got dark on you.
Yeah, it did. Are you still got daylight where you're at?
Oh yeah, we'll have daylight up here until almost 9:30.
Well, I mean that's what's weird is it's been dark here for about an hour already. It's 9:30 here right now. So
yeah, we'll have daylight to almost 9:30 up here because we're up north. So having that requirement to have that in front of them every month at every monthly training, even if it's for only an hour to an hour and a half every month, where it's somebody coming in and talking to them saying, okay, we're going to cover the First Amendment this month, or we're going to cover the Second Amendment this month, or we're going to cover the Third or the Fourth or whatever. Well, what's that got to do with me? Well, these are things that you're going to be dealing with. Well, what do I care about the 9th and the 10th Amendment? Well, we're going to cover the Bill of Rights every year. We're going to cover the Bill of Rights, and we're going to cover it on a regular basis. And we're going to cover how violating these screws up your qualified immunity. And frankly, I'm to the point now where, having seen a lot of what I've seen over the last few years, I'm starting to question the validity of qualified immunity for everybody, including city council members, including prosecutors. You know, and that's what people don't understand, is that qualified immunity doesn't just cover cops. It covers every single person who gets a paycheck from a public entity, period.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, and I didn't want to allude to qualified immunity earlier, but the Libertarian Party was the only people talking about that in 2020. You know what I mean? And a lot of conservatives and constitutionalists and a lot of law enforcement officers that I know did not like that idea about ending qualified immunity. And I was like,
it's got to change or it's got to go.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that's a sore subject when talking with law enforcement, but I'm all for it. The issue is I can't change that here in Jacksonville. Now I can, you know what I mean? Like at city council, I'm pretty sure federal issue. If not, it's definitely, but I don't know. But it's definitely federal.
Where does change happen?
Well, I mean, so I've mentioned there are, all right. So for example, this isn't qualified immunity, but the state of Florida has outlawed no-knock warrants, right? It's been outlawed for a while, but our local law enforcement and state law enforcement can get away with it. There's a loophole where if they do a joint task force with the DEA or the ATF they can do, because they're doing it with a federal or the FBI.
Because they're doing it under the auspices of the federal government.
Exactly. There's a loophole where then they can do a no-knock warrant. So another thing, like, hey, look, I'll vote yes on the budget for JSO this year if we remove the ability of our local law enforcement. It'd be kind of like instead of just a Second Amendment sanctuary city, I want a Bill of Rights sanctuary city in Jacksonville. You know what I mean? Where it's like, hey, look, because you didn't get a actual warrant and you're using a no-knock warrant, and in the state of Florida, the state constitution, state laws say we're not supposed to do that. Either you no longer perform joint task force no-knock raids, or I'm voting no on your budget. Now that's the issue, is my one no vote or the 3 Libertarian no votes
but
isn't going to be enough to not pass the budget.
But imagine going out after that, putting that forward in your city council and saying, we want to do this, and they vote you down. You immediately walk out, pick up your phone and call somebody in the press that you know, or you call me up and say, hey, TC, we just had a vote. I just forwarded this legislation. Nobody's going to talk to me about this. Let's put this out on blast. Yeah. And you put that on blast and you embarrass the living crap out of these people and say, we just had the opportunity to tell people there will be no more no-knock warrants, or this is going to be a Bill of Rights sanctuary city, and they said no, and you embarrass them, because what do they hate? They hate being embarrassed.
Yeah, they hate being called out. And I mean, like, the media, that a lot of the bills you'll see are used that way right now with the establishment. Like, somebody will do what's weird is they haven't done a legalized or decriminalized marijuana bill here, but that would be so simple for the Democrats to try to pass that. All right, one guy who's a Republican, they say he doesn't really care, he did it for publicity, but he tried passing a term limits bill for local elected officials, because we technically don't have like real term limits. You can do, I think you can do 8 years, 2 terms, 8 years, and then you can take a term off and come back. Or what usually happens is you'll do 8 years city council, then you'll go 8 years property appraiser, 8 years tax collector, and then you're going to come back and do another 8 years city. You know what I mean? Like, they just lame duck around.
I hope you mean tax assessor.
Well, yeah. What'd I say?
I hope they don't actually elect the guy who comes out and takes your taxes from you.
They call it tax
tax assessor's office.
I'm pretty sure it's called tax collector.
No, it doesn't matter. I just got a picture. I got a picture of Matthew in the Bible, you know.
I always get a picture of the guy from Robin Hood. You know what I mean? That's who I get a picture of.
Yeah, exactly.
But, but so
this is a different
right.
conversation that I'm having with you than I've had with anybody else because of your local level. And I don't mean to push you, but in a regard, we've chatted a little bit through Messenger, DM on Twitter, and say you don't really know me from Adam, so, and you've been busy campaigning, so I don't even know if you've caught much of my content, but this is a little bit of a different conversation because I really want to push people in your position to really start to think outside of the box and not think about, well, I'm, I hear this constantly from people running for office. Well, I can't do anything to change it. I can just go in and vote. And, and I had a guy on a couple of weeks ago. His name is Ryan Wilson, and he's a Republican endorsed candidate for state auditor here in the state of Minnesota. And he's a constitutional conservative. And I'm like, okay, he got the endorsement. And Ryan, if you happen to be crazy enough to watch this, this is actually props to you. He didn't get that endorsement by being part of the Good Old Boys Club.
Yeah.
He got that endorsement, and he's a strong constitutional conservative. And he said in there, look, if I have to go and audit a Republican, mayor or something like that, or I need to audit something in the state and it's strongly supported by Republicans, I'm going to do that. And I didn't really have to push him on those things, but he's out here saying this stuff that I'm going to make a difference. And he's thinking outside of the box. And one of the things that he said is, here in Minnesota, we have what's referred to as the executive committee or the executive council. And it's like the Secretary of State, the state auditor, and the state treasurer, and the attorney general. And they have kind of a veto vote over the governor when he makes an executive disorder. And he said, even if the Democrats win all the seats and I win mine, I may not be able to make a change, but I'm still going to vote no. But here's what I'm going to do is I'll go out and I'll have a press conference.
Yeah.
And that's what I want people like you, whether it's a constitutionally conservative Republican or a constitutionally conservative member of the Libertarian Party who's running and they win. You have impact.
Yeah.
By going out here with these ideas, making them look at that idea, making them weigh that idea and what it could possibly mean and the benefits of implementing it, and then saying no.
Yeah.
That exposes that. Even if you don't get anywhere, you've gotten somewhere because you've just exposed these people for the shills that they are and the fact that they're only interested in the status quo. That's why.
That's exactly what we're doing here in Jacksonville. All the three Libertarians. There was a organization called the Black Commission here, invited every local candidate and some like Congress and all that candidates, and only like 25 of us showed up. The three Libertarians showed up. Two of my Republican opponents showed up. Most of the people that showed up were Democrats, but not running against me necessarily, or even against the other two Libertarians. But we were all given an opportunity to like talk about issues and kind of do our elevator pitch and this, that, and the other. And I don't know if it was just the fact that like I went up early and was immediately talking about ending corporate welfare and, like shining a light on the corruption in Jacksonville. And one of my opponents basically took one of my stance on ending the gas tax right now because of a lot of people are like, well, that's a fair tax.
What are we going to do about the roads?
Exactly, my roads. Well,
my roads, bro, my roads.
On the gas tax a little bit, but they doubled it in 2021. I spoke up against it, and I said, this is a bad move, and the price of gas is about to skyrocket anyways, and no one listened. But doubling it, 40% of that increase went to a greenway, an emerald trail, like a park bike path. That only benefits 3 of the 14 districts, and the rest of that 40% increase went to we have a skyway that goes around downtown, so that's like one area of Jacksonville, and they want autonomous vehicles around downtown, paid for with gas tax dollars, right? So, and that doesn't benefit my district, far northeast side of Jacksonville, So that's what I was speaking up against. Like, look, the people that aren't benefiting from what 40% of this increase is going to pay for are going to be the ones paying for it. You know what I mean? Like, if the autonomous vehicles are such a good idea, why don't you raise the money like you would on anything else? If the Skyway needs to be there, sell tickets to it. And if people want to use it, they'll pay $1 to use the Skyway. But don't
we're fielding those electronic autonomous vehicles in our third largest metro area here in Minnesota right now, in Rochester, the Mayo Clinic area. And so far, everybody's like, I hate these things, and there never anybody on them. And the only people that use them are using them as a lark or as a gimmick.
Yeah,
and
I mean, like, I would maybe, if what I heard is that also it's not helping with like traffic patterns and all this, you know what I mean? Because it's still driving on the road, right? Like, I don't know, but my whole point is, why would you make 11 districts that aren't going to use those features of what our government is providing people? You're going to make 11 out of the 14 districts pay for something that they're never going to use. Like, maybe they should have done a special gas tax district and make the 3 districts that are going to benefit from that, make them pay the tax. But our affiliate chair went and spoke to him and essentially asked him, and he asked him a different question. He did say, hey, taxation is theft. If you ever had a conversation with Libertarian, you've heard that, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. And he said, what I'm here to talk about, he was like, it was at a town hall meeting, but there were some, people within the local government, whatever. But he said, with the advancements of electronic vehicles and charging stations and all that anyways, and renewable energy, how much of this tax is going to matter in 20 years anyway, since a lot of people might not be on it? And their answer was, that's exactly why we have to do this now, so that we can get it while the getting's good. Essentially, that's what they said. We got to get fuel tax dollars now, because in 10 years, we're not going to be getting as much. That's literally was their answer.
So they're acquiescing to the idea that we're going to just have to cave into everybody having an electric vehicle to save the environment. But I just want to ask, how are they planning on generating all that electricity? Because unless we upgrade our system right now and go to nuclear energy across the United States. Free market capitalists, I'm all for renewable energies. I'm all for nuclear. I'm all for coal and natural gas. And I want a competing economy on all of that. But well, it's not going to work. It's not going to work for them unless they go to nuclear, because they're not going to be able to get.
I'm very pro. I'm pro free market, but I'm pro nuclear. You know what I mean? We definitely, and we've had advancements in nuclear energy over the past 20 years. You know what I mean? All the stuff where, and I'm not a nuclear physicist by any means, but from what I hear is the new nuclear power plants and the fission reactors and all that, whatever they're called, fusion reactors, they have way less nuclear waste now than they used to.
I just had this conversation. I mentioned my cousin earlier today. He's a leaning Libertarian. He voted for Gary Johnson.
Yeah.
And he was nuclear power in the Navy. I've had several friends and family members. Well, actually, last night, Lion is a former nuclear power in the Navy. So, but I was telling my cousin earlier today, all this green energy, right? I just put a video out on my channel talking about the tyranny of green energy, where all the small towns, especially here in Minnesota, rocks and cows, as our governor so disparagingly referred to us. Well, that's just rocks and cows country. We have these freaking wind turbines all over the place down here. Yeah. They're an eyesore. They're ugly. They fall apart. They're non-recyclable. And so you end up with these wind turbine graveyards. And I got a town about 15 miles away from me. These wind turbines are just piling up and piling up and piling up and piling up. And they can't be disposed of except for a certain way because they're dangerous.
Yeah. I've heard that. Like, I haven't done my research enough to know, like, what.
Same thing with the components that make up solar cells.
Yep. So now, and I did see a report on that where, like, what they'll do is they'll pawn off some older solar cells and solar panels to like they'll donate it to like a very poor tribe or country or state in Africa, and they'll be able to use it for a couple years, but once it quits working, it just goes into a landfill that it can't. And
Yeah,
it's
well,
like,
we don't care if we poison the African.
exactly,
people,
it's toxic to the environment and it's poisoning whales and stuff like that. And it's like, man, well, at least they got a couple good years out of it.
But they had green energy, so they're good.
But I mean, like, you're exactly right. I mean, so we did kind of get way off.
No,
path
but
here.
these are things. But this
Yeah.
is why this conversation is really important. I don't care if we're talking about a local municipality or a local county commission saying, "Look, your budget, Mr. Law Enforcement, Mr. Sheriff, we can't make you do anything, and we can't tell you who you can hire and who you can hire, but we can make your budget incredibly difficult."
Exactly.
Oh, you want a budget? Oh, you want 35 new squads in the next 2 years. Okay, you want 35 new squads? You're going to train your deputies.
Exactly. You're going to train them on the Bill of Rights.
On the Bill of
You're
Rights.
going to-
Well, but we've got other things to train. Well, I got news for you. If your deputies are treating people according to their oath and enforcing on themselves an adherence to their oath to not violate people's constitutionally enshrined liberties, you probably going to have a lot less use of force.
Yeah. Oh, so I remember why I was wanting to go back. I was like, man, I wanted to. So I got off on the.
And that bleeds into energy as well,
Yeah.
because now, you want us to be a green energy city? Okay, fine. Well, we're gonna start looking at ways that don't poison the environment and make eyesores in the environment, which means we may have to go to small cell nuclear technology.
Yeah. So I got off on the gas tax tangent because I was trying to talk about, and it took me. I was like, what? Where? You know how that goes. But
I have no idea what you're talking about.
We were talking about the.
As I get messages in going, hey, what about this? Hey, that's why I keep looking at my phone, because I have no showrunner. I do all of this on my own.
Yeah. I mean, and if you're getting questions or comments, we can jump into those. I know we've kind of been all over the place here.
That's how my show goes, bro.
When I talked about the Black Commission event that we were at and we spoke up at, and I did my thing. Well, one of my Republican opponents, so it was essentially, I've been beating the drum about abolishing the gas tax, and he was bringing it up. And him and I have been at a few different events. Like, we did a political hobnob. I got last in a straw poll, but it was a very Republican conservative straw poll, and I got 17% of the vote at a
That's very good showing.
To set up, to explain, I'm running against 3 Republican candidates, and all 3 of them were at that straw poll and on the straw poll. And I was 1% away from coming in third, and I think 3 or 5% away from coming in second. And that's my goal, is get through the primary into the general election. You know what I mean? So if I'm 5% away in a very Republican conservative straw poll against 3 Republicans, it shows you my message. Well, at that event, it's called the WBOBs. It's a talk radio station here in Jacksonville, but they did a political hobnob. I had big giant signs that say abolish the gas tax, like taped up on the pole. Everyone can see it. You can see it from the other side of the building. Well, so at the next event that one of my 2 of my 3 opponents were at, one of my opponents was essentially talking about abolishing the gas tax. So I'm pushing the narrative, so to speak.
Right.
Another very left-leaning progressive candidate, not running against me or any of the other libertarians, got up there and during his speech was talking about inflation and the concerns with inflation. I'm not used to Democrats or progressives acknowledging that inflation even exists, much less talking about what's causing it and why cutting spending and the allocation of resources in the right manner here could help out with those issues. You know what I mean? So I feel like you're pushing
exactly
in the right direction.
Precisely, which is why getting someone like you, and there again, I don't care if it's a Republican who's a constitutional conservative or a Libertarian who's a constitutional conservative, we've got to make these moves. We got to make these pushes. We have to affect change. And sometimes we affect change by running and losing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that
I
you're going to lose.
hope that's not the case.
Right. But
I mean,
sometimes you affect that change because you scare the crap out of the establishment. And the
Oh, yeah.
establishment starts to shift. And this is why these things count. I don't care if you're running for local dog catcher. Be a
Exactly.
constitutionally minded dog catcher. Like, so
Exactly.
you're not violating the rights of the dog or the cat.
Or the dog's owners. As
Or the
private
dog's
property
owners.
rights as well.
Right. But
So-
but my point being is that these are how things change. And then when you do win, you go in and you say the hard damn things. Excuse me, I'm fired up. You say the hard things knowing that they're going to reject it, but having a game plan, because you're not, and I've been referencing this so much over the last of my live streams and my recorded shows and my recorded content, I should say. We've got to stop playing. The conservative constitutionalists have got to stop playing checkers. We have to be playing chess. So we got to go into this going, first day in office. By the way, want to let you know, I'm not voting for anything that's green energy unless nuclear is on the table for this city.
Yeah.
I'm not voting for anything that is a law enforcement budget unless constitutional training is in their policy from this point forward, starting right now. I want it in front of me right now. And I mean, not at this meeting, but the very next meeting, when we finally sit down and actually make this vote, I want to see the change in the policy, or I'll vote no. And then I'll put you on blast, Mr. Sheriff. I'll put you on blast, Mr. Chief of Police. I'll put you on blast, the rest of the city council.
Well, and that's what's funny is, like, on Twitter, when I'm tweeting with those woke leftists and we're talking about something, and I'll say, well, like, I'm sure we could trim some fat of the police budget. I'll just say something like that. So it's out there for everyone to see. And then someone won't know they're talking with a libertarian, and they're like, well, it's weird for me to hear a Republican want to cut police spending. I was like, well, first off, I'm not a Republican. And second off, I don't want to defund the police. I just want to see the resources allocated in the right direction. I don't want to see the focus on drug task force. I want to focus on violent crime task force. You know what I mean? Like,
right. And that should be the Republican position too.
Exactly. It should.
That should absolutely be the Republican position too. We have got to, and it's the same thing. I know there again, I'm like, quit looking over at your brisket, bro. No, I won't keep you. I've already had you on for almost 2 hours, but these are the things that and I know I've been a little bit more pointed in some of the stuff that I've been saying, but it's because I see more of an impact at the local level, and that's why it's so important. And I hope that it's, what I've been saying is you don't hear me chastising. I'm just an old man compared to you. So,
I mean,
listen to your elders, damn it.
I'm not taking anything you're saying personally to me. And I mean, like, I'm getting fired up about this too. You know what I mean? Like, the issue is so many people, like, politics is really the issue, and political parties is really the issue. And, like, the establishment is a large part of the problem. And, like, the swamp, if you will. Like, there are so many people that are just entrenched, and they don't realize they're being ripped off. Even here locally, they're being taken advantage of. There's corruption here locally. Like, we all know it. When I say we all, constitutional conservatives, libertarians, fiscally responsible Democrats. I don't know if any of those exist, but you know what I mean? Like, we know that it's happening at the federal level. And it's on the news all the time. Like, I mean, I follow Rand Paul still. He does his Waste Report Wednesdays, and each year around Christmas, he does the Festivus, where, you know what I mean, airing of grievances, like his spending reports where they're getting goldfish high on cocaine or whatever they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, spending our tax dollars on this.
That is a party I want to go to right there. I don't want to use the cocaine. I just want to watch you get your goldfish high on cocaine.
But I mean,
somebody is going to clip that out. I'm like,
that gets brought up, and people are like, this is ridiculous. That's all they say is they share it on Facebook and they say, this is getting out of hand. And then they go on about their business. They didn't even send their representative an email to say, you need to cut this crap out. They didn't make a phone call. They didn't show you can go to the Capitol in Tallahassee. or you could try and get a meeting with one of your congressmen or senators or whatever. That's difficult. But what you can do right now is plan to go to your next school board meeting and or plan to go to your next city council or county commission meeting. And what I was doing for
unless you're in Louisiana, go to your parish meeting.
Yeah, parish meeting.
You weirdos in Louisiana.
Hey, listen, I love Louisianians. But and that like a French thing. Anyways, that's for another podcast. But yeah, like just that's where like I think I'm alluding to what you're saying is like you can actually affect change here locally.
Yes.
Like I was going to city council meetings for 6 months straight, and then whenever I filed to run as a Libertarian, I filed to run for city council. The next day, my councilman gave me a phone call.
Bro, what are you doing? Why are you running against me, bro?
Well, he's term limited out, but yeah,
but not.
He was, but he called me in District 2. His name's Alfredo. He's a Republican, and he called me and he was basically like, "Hey, look, I see you're filed as a Libertarian." And we had obviously conversations before. He called me in the green room. I'd seen him in a couple other things like the road widening projects here, this, that, and the other, like government meetings, whatever. The city.
I'm just tickled at the idea of a road widening project. We have to have a meeting to figure out to widen the roads. Like, why do we?
Well, and that's another story for another day. But basically, they stole the money from that project that was supposed to happen 8 years ago and spent it elsewhere in Jacksonville. And so it's 8 years behind, and we got serious traffic. It's all to road. It's ridiculous. But they literally stole the money and spent it somewhere else in Jacksonville. And that's not my councilman's fault. He's told me that they took the money in between the time he got elected and the time he took office. That money disappeared. So, yeah, but that's because, like, that's what happens when he told me that he was an independent before he decided to run. He knew he would need help from the Republican Party. And he was essentially trying to tell me, like, there's no way that I'm going to be successful not running as a Republican. But I also knew I was not going to be
But the metric of success, is not being affiliated and aligned with somebody who then supports everything that you say, when what you end up having to do is vote the way they want you to vote so that they can accomplish their agenda. The metric of success is affecting change.
Exactly.
And if the only way to affect change, and I know I've said this numerous times, I get more fired up now that I haven't had a drink for a few weeks. I'll tell you what, I'm not as mellow. The metric of change in this, the metric of success in change is being able to embarrass the status quo.
Yeah.
Period. They hate being embarrassed. We've seen this up here with the Republican Party. When you call them out for their corruption, the big thing up here was we have to back endorsed Republican candidates. We have to get behind them. While the status quo mainline old guard Republicans are literally taking endorsed candidates and running non-endorsed candidates against them in the primary. But at the same time, the head of the Republican Party in Minnesota called out a county chair because he didn't endorse the candidate for attorney general.
Yeah.
While he's under his own party, an elected representative is running non-endorsed people. That you have to call them out on their BS. They hate it. They hate it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or a Republican. It doesn't matter if it's a Libertarian. If they're old guard and they get caught with their hands in the cookie jar, they hate it. They don't want anything to do with it. And they will either change or they will scream bloody murder to get rid of you. And the more that you do that, the more you put them on blast, the more it hurts them. And that's what they need. They need that political hurt. They need that social cultural pressure. And that's what I was talking with Jason about last night, is as an activist, he knows you have an impact. You affect change as an activist, not by following the rules of the system, but by embarrassing the system when it's failing. And that's what I see for people like you and your other Libertarian friends down there that are running, is people are going to start to vote if you look at them and go, I'm going to propose some things, and these things are going to be good for the people. And I know they're probably going to vote it down, but I don't care, because when they do vote it down, I'm going to the public, I'm going to the media, whatever media will listen to me. And we're going to put it out there, and we're going to say, here's how this person voted, and here's how this person voted, and here's how this person voted, and this is what they said. And we're going to put it out there for you guys to hear how corrupt they are. When I say, hey, look, we can end police corruption. We can end all the wasteful spending on green energy if we just make the right decisions, but they won't do it. They won't do it.
So I mean, like, it takes people, and even if you're a registered Republican, to hold them accountable. And you're seeing it right now. Like, I've had more conversations and interactions with constitutional Republicans and small government Republicans. You know, I'm planting that libertarian seed in them. Whenever I have conversations with them, they've showed up to libertarian meetings and introduced themselves to libertarians. And libertarian candidates here are getting invited out to like the Florida Freedom Keepers, like an organization that really got started around the mandates. But that was kind of what got them started. Now we have libertarians showing up in very conservative, very Christian, Republican, constitutionalist organizations, and now they're like, wait a minute, you guys are pretty on board. You know what I mean? And we'll say the same thing to them. Like, that's where you've already said that, like, building those coalitions, working together on these same issues that we are aligned with. And I mean, like, I'll give a shout out. I would hate to do this, but I don't know if you follow everyone on the internet, but
yes, everyone. I follow it.
So I follow the Progressive Party on Facebook. Now, I know that's going to lose you some support, but or maybe even me. But have you seen them lately on gun rights? Like, they're more Second Amendment than some Republicans right now. The Progressive Party. Now, we'll always disagree economically with progressives. But lately,
I love interact. I wish more people who disagreed with me philosophically and politically would interact with me, other than to throw, like, names out.
Yeah, I mean, like, usually I get trolls on my Facebook and they'll just comment nonsense. And
I had that. I had made a post about the Juneteenth, which, by the way, I'm like, if you want to celebrate Juneteenth, that's fine, but can we please not call it National Independence Day, because we have one Independence Day. And some guy's like, what kind of, he posted, what kind of moron even what kind of moron they even got. And it was very bad grammar. And I said, it was probably the same moron that taught you your grammar.
I mean, like,
I love it, but when I get trolls, I troll the trolls back. But if I can get somebody who disagrees with me philosophically and socioculturally and sociopolitically, I will interact with them, because they're capable of having that conversation. So if I can interact with somebody from the Progressive Party or the Democrat Party, or even a Republican I disagree with, I want those interactions. I love, and there again, if you want to steelman your opponent's arguments, not strawman them, but steelman them, and Jason and I talked about that last night, you need to understand their arguments.
Yeah.
And know why they make the arguments that they make, so that you can have that intellectual, reasonable, logical conversation with them. Because if you don't, then all you're doing is strawmanning, and you just end up looking a fool.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And I talked about Twitter beefing with the woke lefties. But a lot of that is me really trying to engage and see where they're coming from. Like, if I'm an elected, if I'm going to make it through the primary, I'm going to have to get the Democrat vote and the independents, no party affiliated. You know what I mean? Like, my strategy, and it's not really that great of a strategy because I haven't made a plan. I have a plan, but you get my point. I'm hoping that the Republicans split the Republican vote 3 ways, and I get everyone else. And then I make it to the primary because of that. And then I would hopefully get the Republican votes from the 2/3 of the people that didn't vote for my winning opponent. And then I would win. I would keep the Democrat, because we have an open primary election,
Right.
unitary.
It comes down to the top two, yeah.
Yeah, top two. You can vote outside of party lines. So that's my strategy. Now, I can only succeed at that, and I hope my opponents don't hear this. So I'm going to quit talking now, and I don't want to shoot myself in the foot.
Don't give your strategy away, bro.
But yeah, I mean, like that's how I'm going to win this election. I'm not going to win this election by winning a bunch of Republican votes. Don't get me wrong, though. Whenever I'm out in public and people hear why I'm running and what I'm running for, the very Republican conservative crowds, last 2 weekends in a row or weeks in a row, I've been in very Republican establishments talking with very conservative people, and they hear what I'm about. And I've had 4 different people ask for a yard sign, ask how they can help out, ask if they can volunteer. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's what I said to Jason last night too. Is the same thing I'm going to say to you. People are going to hear this conversation without us, if they catch it at the right time, without mentioning Republican or Libertarian or Democrat. They're going to hear this and go, "This guy sounds like a constitutionally conservative Republican." Right.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm having these conversations, because the Republicans need to realize that they need to start looking at the constitutionally conservative Libertarians and saying, I've been voting the same way for the last 20, 30 years, and it's not getting me anywhere. I keep losing. Maybe it's time to start voting on some small scale for the constitutionally conservative Libertarian, because they're constitutionally conservative will represent you better than the left-leaning Republican who only wants to get along, to go along, to keep his position of power, period.
That's exactly what we have. And I mean, like, it's sad that there are so many people that are right now registered Republican, maybe registered Democrat, that lean Libertarian or Constitutionalist, or I don't know how popular that is in Democrat, but lean like small government, you know what I mean? That sort of thing, that continuously vote Republican. They don't even think about voting for a third party candidate. But that also takes people like us to go run as third party candidates. You know what I mean? Like, had I ran as a Republican, I don't know that I would have gotten any extra support. I have been told by some Republicans, like out getting petition signatures, oh, you're not a Republican, I'm not going to do that. But the amount of signatures I've gotten from Democrats, because I'm not Republican, probably made up that difference. You know what I mean? And that's just getting me on the ballot. Which, by the way, for me, I need like 600 petition signatures, and I already have like 475 verified. And I have until December to get them in. Like, I have plenty of time. But
you have
like
until when?
December. Like, my election is until March 2023. That's what I'm saying. Like, I've been doing this for
yeah, we got you, bro.
Yeah. I mean, like, I got plenty of time, and I'm definitely going to be on the ballot. And like, one of the other guys that was running at large, he would have needed like 10,000 signatures. So he raised the money, and he's going to pay to get on the ballot. The other guy that's running in District 8 is doing it the signature route, and he's close as well. But that's the difference, is we just need people like us, regardless of political party, running for office. But get in front of people and speak your truth. You know what I mean? Like, my message isn't for everyone, but you know what? I don't owe any favors to a major political party. I don't own any favors to the Libertarian Party. You know what I mean? Like, I don't owe any favors to anyone except for God. You know what I mean? And
you don't even and you can't do any favors for God, bro. So
yeah,
you can't. God doesn't need your help.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, I'll never be able to repay those debts. So
his image bearers need your help.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's the difference, is getting in front of people, and a lot of people are excited. So many, let's say the older generation, they're not, they're like excited to see young people caring. That's really, they're like, whoa, there are people out there that give a damn. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's cool too. I say young people. I'm 33. I'm not like, spring chicken or anything.
You're still a kid, by the way.
I
bet your dad tells you the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You might be a man, but you're still my kid.
Exactly. So,
I don't want to keep you. We've been on a while, and we've and I don't want to say we beat up on the dead horse, because that would be constitutionally wrong. but I've had you on for a while, and I think we've really kind of covered at least the periphery of the periphery of our maybe future conversation to have
Yeah.
future conversations on, especially one if these other libertarian candidates, or if you find another constitutionally conservative Republican down there that would like to talk.
Well,
I'm not just focused on Minnesota. My podcast is Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, but I've been focusing on national issues um, across the republic from the get go. But I want to, I'd love to hear their takes on things. But by the way, if you do decide to put that idea out there about the training thing, you gotta, toss the credit.
oh yeah,
back to me.
I'll be like, I got this idea from. So, and so I did want to ask you, but it looks like we're starting to wrap up.
No, you ask me anything you want. That's fine.
What does the Black Robe Regiment mean? Like, what is that? Is that saying? Is that talking about like Supreme Court justices in a black robe?
No, it's not. Man, bro, you got to know your church history and your history of the U.S. You're about to get schooled.
All right, go ahead. I mean, that's good, right? I'm going to learn something. So,
you are. So leading up to the American War for Independence, by the way, it was not a revolution. We have to stop calling it the Revolutionary War. France had a revolution. We saw how that had ended.
Yeah.
With lots of people losing their heads. The American War for Independence was actually sparked by the preaching of liberty-minded pastors.
Okay.
In very reformed-minded churches. And when I say reformed, I mean Calvinistic, Baptist, Lutherans, Calvinistic, Presbyterians, people who were in the vein of guys like George Whitefield and Jonathan Edwards. These were scholarly, erudite men of God who weren't just, pastors. They were theologians of their own right. And men like the Muhlenberg, which my coffee is named after, is the Minnesota Black Robe Regiment Muhlenberg Roast. He was a Reformed Lutheran pastor. And they preached liberty. And they did not preach disobedience to the crown out of the gate. They preached reform, that the king had a duty to God to accurately rule and lead his people, and they would petition him and petition him and petition him to change how he was ruling over the colonies, and Parliament and the king would just ignore them. And they finally got to the point where they started to say, okay, now may be the time, maybe the season for war.
Yeah.
And it was the churches, not men like Washington and Jefferson and others, and Hancock and others.
Yeah.
It was the pastors and their laity, the elders, who were preaching it's time to rise up and throw off the chains of tyranny. And in fact, in the case of Muhlenberg, his very last sermon was, he said there, he quoted from Ecclesiastes, and he said, there is a time for and there's a season for everything under heaven, and a time for peace and a time for war. And now is the time for war. And he stepped out. That was the last thing that he said to his church at that moment. And he stepped out from behind the pulpit and stepped down off the dais and dropped his black robe. And underneath it was the uniform of a colonial infantry officer.
Dang.
Sword and musket in hand, he walked out, and he led, in a very short matter of minutes, over 100 men from his congregation joined him. And that happened repeatedly across the colonies as pastors. They're, again, predominantly from Calvinistic Reformed congregations, leaning on men like Samuel Rutherford, who was a Scottish reformer, who wrote the book Lex Rex, which translated means the law is king, because up until that point, even the churches has taught that the king was the law over everything. And Rutherford stepped in and said, no, it's Lex Rex. It's the law is king, and even over the king. And in the law, what he meant there was the law of God. And so they were taking their cues from men like Rutherford and Knox and Calvin and Zwingli and others. And even John Locke, the great political philosopher, built much of his work on the work of Rutherford. And
Yeah.
so all of these things kind of swirling together led to these churches saying, no, it's time to throw off the chains of tyranny. And these men without fail became so notorious in the ranks of the British regulars, the British Army and the British Navy, that they hated coming up against these places where these strong men of Christian conviction and value were fighting, because they fought tenaciously. They fought with honor, but they fought tenaciously. And it got so bad that King George, or the British commanders in the North American air theater of operations, referred to him as that damn Black Robe Regiment. And King George actually got so mad he referred to it as that damn Presbyterian War. It's that, I mean, people don't know, they don't realize that's really where it came from, and that's how much of an impact Christians had on the American War for Independence, is that it was named the damn Presbyterian War by King George, and they were referred to as those Black Robe Regiments. And that doesn't mean that every single one of the men that were fighting were from the same church or whatever, but the ranks of the military, the colonial military, swelled when the churches really started to send their men out. In fact, if you watch The Patriot, the movie The Patriot with
Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson, when his son shows up in that one town, where does he go? He walks into the church.
It's immediately to the church.
He goes immediately to the church, and he recruits. That's a take off a little bit off of what happened with Muhlenberg and others. There's a reason why that ended up in that movie, because it's a throw to the history of the church in fighting and winning that war for independence. And I named my channel this because I wanted to inspire Christians, no matter what their political ideology is to have a warlike mentality, not in violence. I'm a non-aggressionist. I don't believe in being the actor of first aggression in anything, but I think we can have a warlike mentality when it comes to our philosophy, to stand up and fight against tyranny and fight against oppression, and to highlight that the church can do that. Because what have we seen over and over and over again here, especially in Minnesota, but really across the country over the last 2 years? Who are some of the first people to cave in and to make other people feel guilty for not caving in here in the United States? The churches.
Yeah.
The churches. Oh, you need to get the jab if you love your neighbor. Oh, the governor has told us, or the mayor has told us, we have to wear masks for worship. The governor and the mayor have told us we have to shut down. We can't meet for worship.
I mean,
we can meet online.
We also saw some religious leaders pushing back. You know what I mean?
Some. You know, like a guy that I respect, John MacArthur, I called him out for caving in initially to the shutdown in Los Angeles. And yet they changed their mind. And then what happened when they changed their mind? They fought and they won.
Yeah.
They fought and they won. A guy that I don't like at all, Rodney Howard-Browne, in Florida, he fought back from the get-go, and they did arrest him.
Yeah.
But so I'm not saying that all the churches caved, but for the most part, churches that come from a Reformed heritage and churches that don't come from Reformed heritage, for the most part, just kind of this mushy middle position of, Romans 13 says we have to obey the governing authority. Well, you guys forgot the governing authority is not the governor. It's not the mayor. The governing authority in the United States over all earthly matters is the Constitution.
Yeah.
And then it's we the people. And the churches have forgotten that because they have misinterpreted Romans 13. They have misinterpreted 1 Peter chapter 2. And so I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir here with a guy who's a constitutional conservative and a Christian by his own campaign website. But that's why my channel's named what it is. And I don't represent it well all the time. I get a little upset and sometimes say things I shouldn't say. But the one thing that I I do stand true on is the non-aggression. I will never be the initiator of force ever.
Well, I mean,
We'll
and
never.
that's a founding libertarian principles, the self-ownership and non-aggression principle. If you believe in those two things, and I think you probably are beginning to lean more and more libertarian, and the less woke that the Libertarian Party becomes, probably the more constitutionalists we're gonna have, at least building coalitions with.
No, I'll tell you what, the window of opportunity here in the state of Minnesota for the Republican Party to keep its constitutional base is narrowly closing.
Yeah.
And the more I talk about the fact that, programs like mine and others where they're ignoring people like me, and people are calling me, oh, you're just whining because they don't talk to you. I'm like, no, I'm not whining because they're not talking to me. I'm reflecting of my base. My base is telling me, why are these people not talking to us? Why are these people not following our lead and talking to people like you, TC, or talking to others? And why are they ignoring us at events? And why are they talking down to us at events? We're not whining. We're sharing a valid critique of a party that was supposed to represent us, which is not representing us. So there's kind of a mini revolution coming. And I'm to the point now where I'm like, this is why I'm doing this series, to show constitutionally minded conservatives within the Republican Party that you don't have to think you don't have an option. You lose the constitutional base in the Republican Party in the state of Minnesota and they start voting Libertarian, guess who's going to start winning elections in greater Minnesota?
Exactly.
Constitutionally minded libertarians.
Just people that feel a certain way and aren't the establishment need to get involved and run for office. I mean, I know that even if you're, regardless of political party, I mean, that's what I say is like, I don't got to agree with somebody on everything, but there are issues and I could cross party lines on several individual issues. So, but I just think people got to get involved.
I guarantee you that I don't care how much we agree on everything. There's going to be some place where we disagree. We're going to disagree. And if we don't ever disagree, then we're probably both wrong.
Exactly.
When you're walking that much lockstep with somebody, even in a church setting, if you're completely that lockstep, you're probably not thinking. You're not doing any thinking. You're taking all your cues from somebody else. And that especially comes down to the realm of political philosophy.
Yeah.
Period. I guarantee you, having had Spike on, there's a lot of stuff that Spike and I agree about, but I guarantee you there's a place where we disagree. I guarantee it. Same with all of my other libertarian guests, and all my other conservative, constitutionally minded Republican, guests that I've had on. There's going to be a place we disagree. The issue is not focusing on the disagreement and then saying we can't ally with one another. It's focusing on how we can find that common ground and move forward for the betterment of our culture and the betterment of our society and for the good of mankind in the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Period.
Totally agree. I was looking someone up. So because you were asking if I knew anyone, and I'll reach out to them. We might not have enough time to get, but like Mara Macy running as a Republican for Congress, and I think it's District 4 in Florida. She's constitutional conservative Republican. She's running against John Rutherford. I would try and reach out to her, see if she'd want to come on.
You open that door for me, and as you know, I'll blow right through it because that's what Welty did. He opened the door, and I just went, "I'm here."
I don't know if she's on Twitter. What's another way to get a hold of her? Or for
the way that my
other links.
Easily used email is tcpearson@protonmail.com, but I can give you some other contact information in private message.
Yeah, just after this, just shoot all those to me in Messenger. And then obviously trying to remember where he's running at. Sorry. Some other people. So I don't know how you feel about it, but the Florida Libertarian Party is going to have a candidate for governor, Hector Roos, ROOS.
I don't know Hector, but well, let's make some of these connections
At once we
through
get off
Messenger
line,
and stuff.
and do some shout
Give
outs to
give
people listening.
give the broader audience and anybody in the Jacksonville area who might still be watching or might watch this later. And by the way, once again, please like, comment, and share. If you haven't subbed yet, please make sure you are subscribed. Follow me here. Go to Eric's website. I've got a link in the chat section. Plus, it's showing up here where you can find him. But give your Jacksonville audience and the broader audience a quick 30-second elevator pitch, and then we'll get you out of here, and so you can go and check your brisket, and I'll close after you leave.
All right, so Eric Parker running for Jacksonville City Council District 2. My number one goal is to end corporate welfare, cut spending, cut taxes. I want to hold the duopoly accountable, the oligarchy, the establishment. I want to put an end to the status quo. I want to give you back the power. And ultimately, like win, lose, or draw in this election, I want to get people involved, and I want them to start holding their elected representatives accountable as well. So you can reach me Facebook, Eric Parker for Jacksonville City Council. Twitter is at EricP904. You can reach all of these on the website, ericparkerforjax.com. Scroll to the bottom to see all the different social media links. The most important part of that website is the top right. You'll see the donate tab, ericparkerforjax.com. If you can help out, there's no minimum amount, but there is a maximum. You can give up to $1,000 during any election cycle, but every little bit helps. It's another chance for me to print business cards or postcards or yard signs. So I'm door knocking and getting out there in front of the people. You know what I mean? And I have some time. I have till December to get signatures in. The primaries in March, and then the once I make it to the general election, it'll be in May of 2023. So
and make sure that, like I said, make sure that your friends and family watch this and then share this around, because I really want people to hear what we talk about.
Once I share this, anyone share this, hit the like, share, follow button on YouTube or Facebook. So
yeah, absolutely. Hey, you go get out of here. Go check your brisket, and I'll close up.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, and we'll do it again maybe closer to the election cycle. Or
keep me updated on how your signature collection's going, and then stay in touch. Appreciate it, bro.
Thank you.
Get out of here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is why I do this. Like I said, I'm fed up with not being represented, and I know that there are people all over the United States who are fed up with not being represented. This is why it is so important for you to know who you're voting for and know what they stand for. I am going to be advancing the idea into the public realm going forward that no matter what the state, no matter what the jurisdiction, no matter what the municipality might be, they need to tie constitutional training to the budget of every single law enforcement agency in the United States, period. End of story. Demonstrable knowledge and understanding of what the Constitution and the Bill of Rights especially means for law enforcement officers, period. That's the way it needs to go. If you can't handle that, then they need to get out of the business. Get out of the career field. Once again, please check out the coffee, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment Muhlenberg Roast. It is phenomenal. Check out the if you like what I'm doing, buy merchandise. If you don't want to invest in a piece of merchandise, please go to the Subscribe Star, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment podcast on Subscribe Star, and pick a level. Pick a level. And also check out the Art and Sales Group. I like to pitch them because they're phenomenal. And also I'd like to remind you about my friend Laura Rear, who has Rocky Mountain Health and Healing. She is a phenomenal, she has a doctorate, but she's also a nurse practitioner. She has a phenomenal practice where she covers Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, and now Minnesota. She does telemed, and she is phenomenal. She is an actual medical professional who believes in your medical freedom and medical freedom of choice to take the kind of care that you want, not some by the numbers according to what the insurance dictates for you. So check out Laura Rear at Rocky Mountain Health and Healing, and check out Arden Sales Group if you're really into golf or shooting sports, because they have a way for you to be able to do it year round here in the state of Minnesota, or if you happen to be in mosquito country, year round for you as well. Minnesota is both winter and mosquito country pretty much at the same time, basically. And deer flies are bad this year. I'm just throwing it out there. But anyway, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for thinking about and choosing to go and either buy coffee and merchandise or going to Subscribestar. Like, comment, and share. I cannot ask for this enough. And those of you that have tuned in for this, Judson and Larry and Sarah and Jose and some of the others, people that have not commented before, Tina and Amber, my good friend Jod down in Jacksonville. I love you, bro. I love you, and I love your wife especially, because we know what she has to put up with. So Denisha and everyone else down there in Jacksonville, check out Eric. If he's not in your district, find people who are in his district and point them towards this video. Ladies and gentlemen, we have got to pull our heads out of our collective derrieres and start voting what's best for the Republic, because what's best for the Republic is sticking to the Constitution. Sticking to the Constitution is going to help everybody. You want to end brutality in law enforcement. You want to end racial profiling. You want to end racial animosity in this country. Stick to the Constitution. Public servants, stick to the Constitution. You'll treat everybody the same. It'll end it all. Stick to your convictions. Stick to your principles. And more than anything else, ladies and gentlemen, right now, in the time frame that we live in, Sic Semper Tyrannis.
We are going for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are a go. All systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.